to Imaginative Visions Journeys, where creators from the entertainment world discuss their journey to turning their dreams into reality. With your host, Justin D. Williams.
Welcome everyone to Imaginative Visions Journeys. Justin here, and today we have Toni Nagy. She's going to be talking about her brand new show that's going to be debuting at Joe's Pub. Toni, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Great. Wow. I yearn to feel great. I don't know when was the last time I felt great, but I feel like I'm still going.
I always like to start off from an artist's beginnings. When did you fall in love with the art of stand-up, comedy, singing, and just performing in general? When did you get that performance bug?
I was a huge fan of comedy as a child, but more of a consumer. That was just the way I was dealing with the media. I did not see myself as an artistic person or a creative person. I was much more into sports and athletics and I guess strangely conformity at the time.
Hmm.
Even though there was something buzzing around in there, obviously. And it really wasn't until I got into my 20s and I started doing a lot of activist work and being in the political sector and trying to quote unquote change the world and do something positive that I realized, wow, there's a lot at play here that comes with imagination. And if people don't have the imagination to see a different world, then we're never going to build it. And so then I started to think that it would be more effective to take all my energy and to put it towards creativity because that's what's going to change people's actions versus this den of circle jerking each other in the world of business and politics.
I have to agree with you. Do you remember your first moment when you were on that stage, what you were going through?
Yeah, no, the first time I was ever on stage, I had applied, I had like sent something in to be on a podcast, but this was like when podcasts were very new. And for some reason, I thought a podcast was like a poetry slam. I don't know what. I was like, oh yeah, it'll be like that cafe in Friends where like Phoebe sings her smelly cat song. Like that was what I was envisioning. I was envisioning like people with berets or something. And I was a writer, so I was always writing. I'd never been on stage before. And the guy who's doing the podcast, he was like, "Yeah, it's a live podcast. Like, come." I was like, "Cool, cool, cool. I'll tell my story. It'll be no problem." And I get there, and it was at this like giant comedy festival, and there was 250 people in the audience. I had never spoken into a microphone before.
Wow.
I had a full panic attack and I'm backstage with all these like professional comics and I'm freaking out and I'm like, I've never been on stage before. And then the guy hosting was like, "Why did you apply to do this?" And I was like, I didn't, I'm not of the generation that researches things well, you know? Like I was like, oh no. And I'm like sweating, and all the other comics are like rolling their eyes at me and they're not impressed. They're not impressed. But one woman was like actually super nice. And I was like, "How do you get the mic out of the stand?" And she was like, "Don't even just adjust your height to whatever is happening in front of you." And the second I got on stage and started telling my story, I was like, oh yeah, I got this.
You
Like
got this.
I was meant to be here.
So let's talk now about the show that you will be debuting at Joe's Pub, which is Pump Your Pelvis Against the Patriarchy. Now that's a that is an excellent title, by the way. What can you, without spoiling, what can you tell us a little bit about the show, or at least thematically, what you're going to be doing?
Talking about, yeah. So this is a stand-up hour that I'm doing. I'm calling it Pump Your Pelvis Against the Patriarchy. And it begins with some original songs that I am doing with my friend Bridget Barkin, who is in the band the Scissor Sisters. And she and I have been collaborators for almost 20 years now. So we just thought it would be fun to start the show with some music, because that I think really gets people in their bodies. And when I think of stand-up comedy, I think of that like release that people have when they open their mouths to laugh and how that is so disarming and that brings us into the body in a way that is unique when you go to a comedy show and you're collectively laughing with people. And so, what I focus on and what I talk about is my own story, but also my observations of society. Specifically, I am framing it around how the patriarchy impacts us all and doesn't actually benefit men, doesn't benefit society, isn't something that we should be like grasping and holding on to, even though obviously um, it is the like organizing principle and structure of our society. So it's really like about like deconstructing gender, deconstructing my own relationship to gender, looking at society, but through this lens of stand up and making it funny. I think feminists have a reputation of like not being funny or
Yeah,
being like, I'm a feminist and I'm mad. And like, I am a feminist and I am mad. However, comedy is my deepest priority. And I think that I am like here to talk about a feminist agenda, but in a way that is like inviting and funny and exciting for everyone to participate in.
and that's the thing about when it comes to comedy. Just want to touch on what you just said there about the feminists not being funny. It's just like, no, it's comedy. It's like if you don't find something funny, you might be something enrooted in you that you might not be so comfortable addressing. Now, you also say you're going to be doing musicals. So the fact that you're doing music and comedy, how do you combine both of those and then transition into stand up as well?
Well, I also have a lot of strange costumes for these musical numbers.
Hmm.
I think it just gets people like really pumped up, like dance and music and beats. Like when we listen to music together, our hearts synchronize.
Hmm.
And when our hearts synchronize, that opens us up to a more collective experience. So the journey of the music is to just like regulate our nervous systems together. So everyone in the audience is like, okay, we're grooving together, we're on the same rhythm, and then my words will penetrate their psyche, and then we'll end with one more song because then you will have to heal them as they get out into the world again.
And can you talk a little bit about the writing process? Because I know when it comes to comedy, that is probably the most longest process as you writing what you're going to be doing, like outlining your shows. Can you take us a little bit behind the curtain on your creative process of doing your shows?
Yeah, it's funny. I was literally just writing right before. I was like, I had the alarm to come on this. I personally love writing, and the way that I come up with comedy is I have conversations with people, and anytime I make someone laugh, I write it down. Anytime I say something where someone's like, oh, that's interesting, I'm like, oh, is it? And then I write it down and then I come back to it later. And I think, like, for any person that is looking to write comedy, it always is best when you start with the truth. So, like, I'll take a subject, like, let's say chainsaws were originally developed for birth. And like these two, Scottish doctors were like, oh, yeah, if we use chainsaws and like cut open this woman's pelvis, it'll be less messy. Okay, well, there's something like inherently funny about that. That's like actually like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre
Massacre.
horror show. However, the challenge is okay, here is the information. What are the jokes? How can I talk about how can I talk about this Nightmare on Elm Street like event, but make it funny? So a lot of times like I'll research a topic or I'll have information and then the challenge or the joy is like, okay, well, where is the joke in this?
That's one thing that's the brilliant of comedy is to find even humor in something like dark, like Freddy Krueger, like he's
Yeah.
killing teenagers, but you're like, oh, maybe this teenager's an asshole. So it could be like, and that's the thing, especially when with the writing process, is that with comedy. I also wanted to ask you this: is that when you're performing up there and you're getting that energy from the crowd, is there times where you got to do an audible or just like, okay, this one landed perfectly. Let me just hit them again with this next one I have in the chamber. Or if something didn't hit as well, do you just like do a quick audible for that? Like, how do you read your audience?
Well, I mean, that's an interesting journey of stand up. I think in the beginning, I would like write a set and then I would say my set. And sometimes it would be to complete silence because I never got the audience on board with me. Like I got on stage and they didn't like me, and then I never got them to like me. And so
Oh,
then you're just kind of you're digging a grave, and then you're like, "Oh, anyone going to help me? I'll just continue digging my grave." So the challenge with stand up is getting people on board with you in the beginning. And sometimes you have to work harder than others, but once they're on board with you, you can take them places and you can challenge them. So I think the biggest mistake I always will make will just be coming out too hard, just coming out not soft. I mean, I think stand up is a seduction, and like anyone will tell you, people have to really know each other well or be very attracted to each other for it to come in hard and
mhm.
without a lot of nuance, right? But when you're getting to know a person, you're gonna want to like ease in. You're gonna want to have some like time to get to know each other. So I think that is the mistake have made many a time, and I've learned from it mostly. But sometimes I still do it just because I'm upset about the world and I come in hot, and that's what happens. That's what they're gonna get.
And two more questions. The first one is you talked about the outfits. So you're incorporating, like you change, you say you have different outfits for like particular presentations. So it also has kind of like a theater as presentation to it. How do you incorporate and decide which outfit is going to be for which?
Well, I mean, I want to tell you, but it's when with these songs are thematic, so the
Okay.
outfits fit the songs. But I also do like a one person show that's very clowny where I'm actually changing characters throughout the show. So it's like stand up, but then there's these vignettes of different characters that I'm doing. So that's just kind of been my vibe for a while, is just doing a little bit of like a clowning deconstruction and having some different elements of like props make their way into my work. With this one, there aren't a lot, I just for the songs it just made sense. But I do think that there is something exciting about an aesthetic, and the aesthetic has to be absurd for me. Like I think you are not your funniest when you are your hottest. You are your funniest when you are your most grotesque,
That's
So I think that's like a little joyful break of the pressures of society, is that like you don't want to look good on that stage. That's not funny. That's actually it's actually quite, it's like no, you want to look your worst.
in that way the audience is gonna or react to like, oh, what's going on over here?
Yeah, or they're not going to be wanting to like, oh, yeah, it's so hot. You don't
Yeah,
there's nothing comedy is not meant to be like I am so sexy. Comedy is meant to be I am prioritizing funny, and funny is always strange.
and my final question is a two-parter. You wear many hats. You write, you do stand up, you sing. Which one do you think is the most creatively challenging to you? Which one brings you the most challenge out of all the hats you wear?
Well, I think like I do a lot online and on the internet, and that is the easiest because you're not interacting with the people while you are creating. You get the aftermath, but you have the freedom of being like, well, I thought it was good. What do you think? Stand up. And then when you do a theater show, because I have another theater show, you have a little bit more leeway because it's theater, and if like a joke doesn't land or whatever, you're in theater. Stand up is the most direct, like painful tie or like umbilical cord you will have to an audience, because immediately if your things are hitting or they're not. So stand up is exciting because it is this unstable molecule, and you will never know what's going on with the audience. However, it is by far the most like it will tickle the taint of your ego and your self-esteem, because if you are not you are not connecting, it will be so obvious to you.
And the final question, how can people reach you? Is it a website, social media? How can fans keep in touch?
Yeah, so I have a website, toninaj.com, TONINAGY.com, and that'll lead you to all my socials. But my socials are the same all over the place on TikTok, on Instagram, and then on Facebook, it's Toni Nagy Comedy, TONINAGY.
Thank you, Toni. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Us for Imaginative Visions Journeys. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from Imaginative Visions, you can visit imaginativevisions.com.